So in this video, we will be talking about the dorsal column medial lemniscus tract. This is a sensory tract. It's responsible for fine touch, vibration, and proprioception. The receptors for these are the Pacinian, which is deep touch and vibration, Ruffini for stretch, and Merkel and Meissner for fine touch. The dorsal column tract is a dorsal spinal cord system. So this is the dorsal part of the spinal cord, as opposed to the anterolateral systems, for example, like the spinal cord. The dorsal system is a more advanced system. Anterolateral systems are more primitive. The dorsal column tract sort of has two segments that you need to know. One for the lower limbs and one for the upper limbs. The axons in this tract, just like the spinothalamic tract, are pseudo-unipolar, which means the axon has two parts, one for the periphery and one for the central nervous system. Because this is a tract involved with sensation, it's going to enter from the dorsal horn. Remember, the dorsal horn is for sensory and ventral horn for motor. So if we begin with the lower part, we'll work from the lower segments to the higher segments. So first you'll have your lower limb axons coming in, and they come in from the dorsal horn. Remember, the cell body is in the dorsal root ganglion, which is a collection of cell bodies, so there will be other cell bodies in here. It comes in from the dorsal horn and it ascends up into the brain ipsilaterally, up until the medulla, ipsilaterally. Ipsilaterally means same side. So if this is the left side of the body, the axons come in and it's still going up via the left half of the spinal cord up to the medulla. If we look higher up, where the upper limb axons will start, and this is around T5 that you'll start to see the upper limb fibers. And so they also have their cell body in the dorsal root ganglion as a pseudopolar neuron enters the dorsal horn and it ascends ipsilaterally into the medulla. Now, they're entering in this dorsal part of the spinal cord. There's two segments. The lower segment, the lower limb part, the lower half of the body part is for the gracile fasciculus. So as these lower limb ones go up, if we look at our spinal cord, let's pretend this is our spinal cord and this is a halfway division. The lower limb ones will come in like this, will come in like that. As you're going higher and higher, more and more fibers are coming up and they're getting built up, and it's going more and more laterally, right? So the upper limb ones will be the more lateral fibers. So the lower limb ones, as they're going up, they're called the gracile fasciculus. This is the name of the axons as they're going up into the gracile nucleus, which is in the medulla. Once again, your dorsal root ganglion neuron cell body is there, axons is coming off, enters the dorsal horn, goes up on the dorsal system part, dorsal part of the spinal cord. It's going up as the gracile fasciculus, and the neuron will synapse in the gracile nucleus. For the upper limb, again, neuron coming in, enters via the dorsal horn. It's going up ipsilaterally as a cuneate fasciculus, and it will synapse in the cuneate nucleus. So the pink is cuneate nucleus. You have one on the left side, one on the right side. You have a gracile nucleus, one on the left side, one on the right side. You have a gracile fasciculus on the left side and right side. You have a cuneate fasciculus, left side, right side. Cuneate is for the upper limb. Gracile is for the lower limb. The gracile fasciculus is more medial. The cuneate fasciculus is more lateral. I remember this, it's silly, but I remember it. General motors. G for gracile, M for medial. So as you're going up the spinal cord, it's happening like this. More and more is getting added laterally. The upper limb ones will be more lateral for the upper limb, which is your cuneate fasciculus, whatever. So it goes up into the medulla. So far into the medulla, it's come up ipsilaterally. Left side of the body has stayed in the left side of the spinal cord. Now when you come into the medulla, where your gracile and cuneate nucleuses are, or nuclei, sorry, then they cross once they've synapsed. So up until the nucleus, these were your first order neurons. They've come from the peripheries, but now they end here. They synapse with second order neurons. And what's happening here is, if you look at your left cuneate and your left gracile nucleus, they both collect. So your left cuneate, new second order neuron is here, and it's being combined with the left gracile nucleus. They're all running together now, and they're running together up contralaterally now. So they combined and they crossed. So the left side fibers have now gone into the right side fibers. And as they're crossing, these crossing fibers here are called the internal arcuate fibers. And crossing is referred to as decussation. So these decussating fibers are your internal arcuate fibers, and once they've crossed, they are now referred to as the medial lemniscus. That's why this is called the dorsal column medial lemniscus tract, right? It's also called the posterior column medial lemniscus tract because it's on the posterior part of the spinal cord. So then the right side again will cross via the internal arcuate fibers onto the contralateral side, which happens to be the left side here, and it goes up as the medial lemniscus. They go up onto the ventral posterior lateral part of the thalamus, and here they will synapse as well. So that's the end of your second order neurons, from the nuclei up into the thalamus. And now your third order neurons will start here, and they'll go up into the post-central gyrus. So you have a central sulcus, the next gyri this way is your post-central gyrus, and this is involved with sensation. So this is the primary sensory cortex, and as this is a dorsal column tract, is a sensory one because it's involved with these sensations, it will go into the post-central gyrus, just like your spinal thalamic tract. Another difference between the spinal thalamic tract and dorsal column tract is, as spinal thalamic tract enters, it crosses straight away as a ventral white commissure. The dorsal column tract does not cross when it enters the spinal cord. It's ipsilateral up until the medulla, but that's now we're talking about the brainstem. You're not in the spinal cord anymore. Let's now talk about hemisections in relation with your dorsal column tract. So a hemisection, also known as Brown-Séquard syndrome, is if you have your spinal cord, you've essentially lesioned one half of it, so either the left half or the right half in a segment of the spinal cord. So let's say this is our left side, right side, and let's say there's a hemisection on the left side here in this segment. So two things when it comes to lesions: what's happened at the level of the lesion, and that's your first question. The second one you want to ask is below the lesion. At the level of the lesion, sensory information is coming in from the dorsal horn. So if this is your dorsal horn and it's lesion, no sensory information can come in. So at the level of the lesion, there is no sensory information ipsilaterally to the lesion. So if there's a left hemisection, no information is coming in from the left side of the body. Right side, it's all fine, can still come in. Below the level of the lesion, so dorsal column tract ascends ipsilaterally until the medulla, right? So if there's a hemisection in the spinal cord, for example here, firstly at the level of the lesion, no information is coming in, but also ipsilateral dorsal horn, dorsal column information is coming in. So if we look at this half, we have this sort of information coming in here, for the dorsal column, let's say this is the cuneate fasciculus, but we also have gracile fasciculus coming in ipsilaterally. So there is a loss of information ipsilaterally. On the right side, because it is in hemisection, right side information can still go up. If we talk about then hemisection of the spinal cord with keeping in mind spinal thalamic tract, remember for the spinal thalamic tract there's contralateral loss of information because as soon as it comes in it's crossed. Dorsal column travels ipsilaterally until the medulla. That's why there's an ipsilateral loss of proprioception, fine touch and vibration. If the lesion in the dorsal column tract is after the medulla, so remember in the medulla we said it crosses as the internal arcuate fibers like that. So because it's crossed, if it's in the medulla or after the medulla, the lesion, then it's a contralateral loss of information, right? Because if this is the left side and there's a lesion on the left side somewhere, well, the left side is now carrying information about the right side of the body, right? Because then these right parts will come from here somewhere. So it goes up into the medulla, internal arcuate fibers, takes it to the left side. So if there's a lesion in the left side, now you've lost contralateral information. But as long as the lesion is in the spinal cord, you'll only lose ipsilaterally dorsal column tract information.